Okay, so the recording should have started. So hi everybody and welcome to the November 2022 Interlibrary Loan Roundtable. If I look distracted, I'm still admitting people and I'm on a smaller screen than I am used to. Oh, Wendy, I think there's some feedback. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so I do not have a large agenda today because I don't really have much of an agenda at all. And I did get a request to do like a small training on book straps and shipping labels. And what I'm going to actually do is do a webinar to cover those. So I know I had mentioned in our last meeting that I wanted to do a new webinar for Clover, and they just did another update. So I'm hoping to put that on the calendar soon because I've been looking at the CE calendar, trying to map out CE courses to teach. So I am going to do a Clover webinar, and I should be sending out details in the next couple weeks so that we can put them on the official calendars. But I did want to ask what other training people would like to have, either on Clover or the Courier or anything interlibrary loan related. I have a short list of video tutorials that people have asked about, and I'm going to be working on those in the next 4-ish weeks. So I will have them up before New Year's. But I would love to have input into what training to offer. So I know that I'm actually doing sessions on things that you would like to hear more about. I have book straps and shipping labels, so I can do a separate webinar specifically on those. Oh, Marie said she'd like a Clover searching best practices. That's a good one. Yes. And I'll probably block out an hour for each of these, even if we don't end up taking a full hour. That leaves, even if it's like a short demonstration, it's a lot of time for discussion.
That's a really great point that Marie brought up about searching, because in different places in Clover, for example, articles can matter, and other places it does not. So that will connect also with the, let's say, book straps as well, because when you search for those, they're particular versus how you might search in, let's say, the search bar for an item to request it. So knowing about Clover's idiosyncratic nature and what's the best practice when you're doing different statuses or different tasks.
Yes, the statuses in particular. And I did just have, I'm writing down screen wrong. I did just have a meeting with the Share It user group. You see, I sent out some updates to the ILL listserv on some recent updates that they've made to the system. And I got a heads up that 2023 is basically the year of the status screen UI updates. And they have some pretty lofty goals that I'm hoping will also make the system just easier to navigate. And one of the suggestions that someone sent me that I passed along, which was to be able to batch update a shipping date or a due date from the status screen. Like right now, you can change to like everything that's showing. You can change it to shipped, but to change due dates or ship dates, you'd have to click on every individual request. So that is going to be part of the overhaul that they do on the interface next year. So I do not have a timeline for that yet, but it is on their pipeline, which is very exciting. I guess very exciting for me. Let's see. Any other training suggestions? Oh, I love that this type of update gets us so excited. Things that help with interlibrary loan and also make our lives just that little bit easier are always nice. Okay. Oh, Adrienne, I think you're muted.
Oops. So one thing that might be helpful is understanding how different statuses may change things where things are found. For example, if an item goes into overdue and then unbeknownst to us, it becomes renewed by lender, it goes into the renewed by lender status. And so it goes out of the overdue and it'll remain there even though it's out of that. Let's say it set a new deadline of a due date, then it's still in that status. So it doesn't go back to overdues. So kind of understanding how are we affecting each other as different libraries when we make decisions. They might have done that for a particular reason. I don't know if it was just like they're estimating the time it would come back in the courier, so it doesn't look like it's overdue. They don't have to worry about it yet, or there might be another reason why they extended it, but we didn't ask for any other time. But yeah, so it's like I'm not looking for it necessarily there. So if I'm searching for overdues, it might also be in a different category. So understanding like when things are changed, what kind of consequences might happen that may not be seen on your end, but may affect how another library operates or their workflow.
Good point. Yeah. All right. So it sounds like a training on navigating the status screens and what changing the status is a separate one. And then one on just searching best practices to get search results that are helpful. The general one, just in case, and one training on bookstraps and shipping labels. And you can't see it because I'm not in my office space, but I do have a giant whiteboard and I have mapped out different areas of an interlibrary loan. And the dream is to make like little badges so that people can have little badges that show they've completed this string of interlibrary loan webinars. So I have lofty goals for interlibrary loan training.
Do you think, April, that will show up maybe in the Department of Libraries certificate program?
I don't know
or
if
like
it would be
as
like
an elective?
I would be as an elective, yes. Because I have shown my I guess it's like a vision board. I have shown it to Joy and she was pretty excited about that too. But I have to actually create the content.
Yeah, or like it's kind of like a specialization because there are different roles in a library, and some libraries are able to have more concentrated interlibrary loan librarian, or it could be part of a bigger vision for training.
So I would like there to be like maybe not an ILL certification, but like an ILL track that is part of the electives so that you can do this. But I also wanted it to be trainings that are smaller just so that we're more focused on specific aspects and try instead of like the general webinar where I throw everything at everyone all at once and then you're expected to remember all of it. It doesn't really work that well. So I have it broken down into categories on my board, but this is definitely helping with how I can shape that as well. So yes.
That makes a lot of sense because applying what you're learning, because you make more meaning when you're actively engaging with the software. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I think I know what that is, but until you're doing it, maybe you don't see how it works in reality and some of the challenges or.
Yes. And also I've been I'm in a master's of education program right now, and so it's all about how people learn. So I'm a little obsessive about also building in like time to reflect and connect. So they're all going to be like hour-long webinars, even if it's a specific focus. So I hate to break it to everyone, but it is basically my education experiment. Oh, thanks, Marie. Oh, and Tenzin said she's always having lots of questions on Clover. So I think like a whole series on different aspects. In person would be nice. We don't actually have enough computers, and it's hard for people from farther away to get there.
She might be talking about the round table.
Oh, the round table. That'd be nice.
It might be interesting to kind of alternate, or because it is an advantage during the day for a much shorter meeting to have people from different libraries all over the state able to join in, and then having a morning one, an afternoon one that allows for some flexibility on if Thursdays are the same for people. But having in person is also an opportunity for us to meet each other and have informal networking and conversations. But again, it's a lot to go to the Department of Libraries too, especially for smaller libraries who might need to staff circulation to us. Or
we are in Barrie, so I know it's a long drive for anyone in the southern part of the state. Oh, Tenzin did not mean the round table. I know that we're still exploring moving some trainings back to in-person, but for the shorter ones, generally, I think we're sticking with online. For those like day-long ones, they're, I think, slowly moving back to in-person, but we've just been able to reach so many more people throughout the state by having them online. But I will connect with Joy about that and see if there is a different strategy. Tammy likes the idea of an in-person roundtable. So I can also look into the possibility of maybe every year our August one at least could be in person, because then it's a better chance of good weather also. Because May is still kind of hit or miss with snow. Does everybody like the idea of an in-person roundtable in August?
it's probably you could also meet outside too. Or at different times.
Richard said yes. Yes. Okay. People are on board with an August one. All right. I like the idea of good weather. Okay. That is a lot of yeses. Yes, August is great, so we have time to plan for it. So yes, I will make sure. What I think I'm probably going to do for the 2023 ILL roundtables is I'll probably just set the dates and the times, now, so that we have them all on our calendars far in advance, and that will also help me figure out inside, outside, and what locations are options for an in-person time, because if a lot of people will be here, I might want to move it to a space that has more parking, or better parking anyway. So, yes. All right. Okay, August in-person roundtable. Did anyone else have any kind of interlibrary loan training that they wanted? I saw Wendy said what to do when things go wrong. And I think it would depend on what goes wrong, but yes. Problem solving in Clover. That would be a good one. I'll have people send me their problems in advance, and then I can help with that too.
Or informally collect them, because at these meetings, sometimes you ask a question, you're like, oh, your mind kind of goes blank, but you've had issues along the way maybe, and so maybe documenting those in between the meetings, so then we kind of get a sense of like, is this a big problem? Is this a small problem? Is a lot of libraries having it, not a lot of or what needs to be trained, or what are the solutions that people are coming up with?
Sounds good. I can also look through my email, because I have a tendency to sort email as opposed to delete it. So if I do see that problem again, I can go back through my email and figure out what we did prior to fix it. Okay. Oh, yes. Riley said lost books in the courier and shipping policies and follow-up procedures. That's a good one. Yes. Session on that. Generally, the first step, the courier FAQ page outlines the steps, which are generally you contact the library to see if they have it. If they don't, you let me know. I check with priority. They do a bin scan to check for it. I don't really have a lot that goes after that. So I think follow-up procedures after that would be a good addition.
This may be out there somewhere and you can answer, but maybe think about overdue items, when to follow up and when's kind of like a grace period to, I don't know. I recently had a library, the book was due and then next day it was overdue in Clover, and already the next day I'm contacted, where's the book? I'm contacting you about the overdue, and it seems very fast. And some libraries might have the capacity to do that. A week overdue, is that kind of the expectation, or is it a little bit shorter than that, or like things take time to get back to other libraries? And the Interlibrary code allows us to check out the books until the due date. So, and we need a timely, so thinking about when to contact other libraries, when is something really overdue?
Was it an auto overdue notice? Because I get those a lot.
No, a library wrote to me to the library directly asking about the book. And it could be that their library had it on, somebody had it on reserve, on hold, and they needed it back, but it seemed to me that, so it was due on one day, it went into overdues the next day in Clover, and already the next day. And sometimes some libraries, I work Tuesday through Saturday, so there are some days I'm not there at the library, so I can't really respond immediately. And some other libraries may even work less for so it's kind of understanding what's reasonable to ask for a book back. But if somebody else needed it, absolutely, I would, do my best to get it back to them. But it seemed very soon to be pressing for an overdue book that was only overdue for 24 hours or not even that.
Unless the library had a patron who asked, could they borrow it next? That is pretty soon, because even if it was one day overdue and you had to send it through the mail, it still wouldn't be back at that point.
Right. Or it could be put in our book drop for, like a time.
Right.
Yeah. After it. If it was a week overdue or a month overdue, I would feel like, yeah, we got to get on this patron, because yes, they were given reminders, but maybe a phone call would be, or an email would be appropriate.
Right. That might have just been a hopefully isolated incident. Noreen said that they're pretty lenient with getting books back to them, and said maybe it was a patron's waiting for it.
It could be also new staff too, with different expectations, and
it might. If they're on the Interlibrary Loan Listserv, then it might. They should be getting the best practices update that we created and updated, and that would also be a good reminder that the due date is the date that it's due back to your library, not their library. So
right, and then
it's also possible their patron was asking them a lot.
Yeah.
So, and Marie asked for a training that includes the importance of up-to-date contact info in Clover. Yes, I think an entire session just on the participant record is a solid goal. I have a very short video tutorial, but I think a whole session on it is a good plan. Yes. Okay, so yeah, pretty much everyone agrees that that was a little bit much for requesting it be sent, asking where it is one day after it was overdue. So maybe when I send out the best practices reminder, which is every 6 months, I'll make sure to emphasize due date means the day it is due back to the patrons library, not to the lending library.
And the process, there is some processing time, staff capacity, and also the time it elapses, whether it's sent by mail or courier or other.
Oh,
or express that another patron wants it, because then, I feel like, oh, this is a one-time thing. And, also we can make a note that this patron returned it late, and we can deal with it more directly that way as well.
And so this is a silly question. Someone in the chat is listed as just library. And I know you are also on the desk and you really appreciate the best practices email as a reminder. Who is it? Beth F. Fairley. Thank you, Beth. All right. Okay. So something to add to the reminder email. Training on the participant record. Okay. You guys are giving me lots of good ideas. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone have anything else interlibrary loan related that they would like to talk about? We still have a while. I blocked out 2 hours for this, so if I remember correctly, November is sometimes a slow meeting, but I could be confusing it with February because February is always the quietest.
Something that's been helpful to us is that more libraries are utilizing Clover bootstraps or creating their own. That's been very helpful. I know that when a library called today that our book didn't have it, so I don't know if it was our older style. We're now using the bootstraps. So we have the library's contact information, where it's going, so it's clear to if an item goes waylaid in the courier, so that we don't have a phone call. So I don't know if their library took it off or forgot to put it back on, or it got lost, or a patron may have taken it off. But yeah, it saves that time. Although it's nice to connect, and I was always happy to hear from that library. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I know. I think we need to do some more training here and make better use of bootstraps. Right now, we either send it out or sometimes. Yeah. And I know that they did just update. I don't have that list in front of me. They updated the font on the bootstraps, and they're larger and easier to read at this point as well, which is a nice change.
I noticed that the root information that some libraries are adding, configuring on the back ends, that's bold. It's written in bold type.
Right.
It's a different look than the other texts. So yeah, so there's lots of customization as well that people can do. So it's kind of exciting.
And you can add your library's logo as well.
You mean in the Clover box? You mean there?
Yeah, I think you can, unless it's just the default Clover logo.
I think you can edit that, but it's like it's written in a particular way that maybe has to be coded in a, or
I
like
think it has to be like a really specific size. I think that what we should do is also maybe have like contest, or I'll talk to the chief marketing officer for a new Clover logo. Oh, and Marie said she has a courier comment. She seems to be getting a lot of her courier labels coming back to her in her materials, which makes her think she shouldn't bother sending them. I mean, I really like it when people send me their courier labels, and it is part of the best practices. I wonder why people are not. They may just be when they're packing them up, not realize that it's there, or they have someone else packing it to send back and they already have some printed. We actually sort ours and then just pull them out of we use a card catalog. We pull them out when we're sending them back.
We look for them intentionally, and we put them with our paper files. So our paper files, and the courier label comes to us in a way that's not usable. It's like written in pen, or it's like the date that's been shipped, like, or it's kind of crinkled and ruffled. So we'll get a new one from our box, and then, or we also have a box where at another time we will erase the due dates, and so we'll go back to our box. We will always put with labels, so it's appreciated. But yeah, we always take them out, but people put them in different locations, and standardization makes it easier to find things. So if all libraries did the same thing, for example, always putting it in the courier bag, there's that plastic little envelope area where we put the label, put the return label in there so everyone knows it, or it's in the book, or it's always in the front of the book, but every library does it differently for different reasons, and sometimes you just miss them, like if they're tucked in the back in the due dates folder. Some libraries don't have that anymore, or they don't have it for all their books. So having a consistent place makes it easier to find.
Yeah, so the one where you stick it behind the shipping label, sometimes those fall out because eventually some of the bags, like, you got a little looser.
And we sort those. We will take those out and we would put in a new label and deal with those later.
Yeah.
So
I like it when people just kind of stuff them in the book somewhere, anywhere, or with DVDs when they put them in the case. I learned once that I opened the book and then I like fan through the pages. But then I learned it went out to the patron, then it came back, and when it came back and I was checking to make sure they didn't lose anything, I found it like tucked behind the book cover on the back side, so I had missed it. I found it eventually, but it's like the interlibrary loan scavenger hunt, I think. Just look for the labels.
We generally put ours kind of so you can see it, and it's also secure in the text block. Sometimes when you put it in the front of the book, especially if you have mylar or plastic on the cover, that like it's loose and it will fall out. Or if you put it inside the book, that can also, like, you missed if you're just processing the external part. But
yeah, so we've got some people in the chat saying that they put the tag in the front of the book, or they put it in the pocket on the bag,
where it could fall out possibly.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a mix, but it seems like there's some common places that we can look, and then some people just don't send them at all, so that's why we have our backups. Okay. Yeah, and Marie pointed out that some of the materials are just too varied to pick a standard place to put the labels. So I think we'll probably just have to keep checking the pocket, the front, the back, and inside the DVD cases to see where they are. And yeah, so, but yes, it is still part of the interlibrary loan best practices and expectations, and the interlibrary loan code as well that we updated to send a return label, whether through mail or courier. And sometimes people forget, but that's okay. And that's why we have printable ones. All right. It's a very quiet interlibrary loan day. Oh, and Noreen says she loves having access to the printable ones. And they are going to be hopefully making more updates to shipping labels in 2023. The company actually started talks with FedEx to try and create some labels that could be used for shipping, but it turns out they're only working with the major shipping companies, which did not work well for us. But I am hoping that someday I can get them to create some that you can just print off right away. And Susanna said some labels leave ink on the inside of the plastic of the courier bag. Do you have suggestions for cleaning this off? I have tried Goo Gone and a couple other things, and we have some that we just have had no luck getting the ink off. And Tracy says that they've had some luck with hand sanitizer. That's a good idea. We'll try that here too and see if that will work. But generally, we have not had much luck getting those. It ends up leaving like a ghost label on the bag. Maybe we can experiment with some of the bags that we have here too. See if there's a better way. Okay. So hand sanitizer. Okay. Because I know that we spent some time trying to clean it off. Oh, and Susanna says sometimes she's been able to get it off with pencil eraser, but it can be hard to reach. Okay.
April, would it be helpful if we did get those kind of bags to send them to the department to get them out of circulation, or if we couldn't like solve the problem ourselves? And just this, yeah.
Yeah, send them our way and we will put them in a pile and experiment to figure out how to get them fixed. And if you end up with bags that break or something like that, definitely send those to us as well. Oh, and Sandy said that she hole punches the labels and keeps them in a binder. It would be nice to have a redesign so there's a border so the hole punch doesn't punch the label. That's a good idea. And I can always update them to shimmy them over a little bit. There is a little bit of a border on the paper, but not a huge one.
We use that border sometimes as a way to make a book strap.
Yeah.
Or for we still are doing curbside, so we reutilize that for the patron's name as well as a label on the bag.
Because so the PDF doesn't show it, but there is a border, or maybe it does. I haven't looked at it in a while, but there should be an outside border around the entire label page. But yes, I can double check. We have a hole punch, so I'll double check how far over that needs to be and see if I can redesign it. There is. Thank you, Richard. And if you're low on bags, is it best practice to email the list? Yes, so email the courier listserv because we are also on that and Vance is here and we have courier stops 3 days a week. So Vance will generally answer you within 20 minutes and say that he is putting more bags in there on our next pickup day. But it also, if you email the listserv, it means that if someone has one coming sooner, like the very next day, then they can throw some in there as well.
Has any library gotten too much after their request? Because you do see in the listserv like a response, oh, sure, I'll send you some, like from Vans, for example, or another library too. But then it's like, well, how many are they getting? Should I still send them out? Should I take them out of the bag that I've earmarked to them? Is it bad to get too many bags? Maybe that isn't a problem.
I mean, I feel like it's not a bad thing. Not everyone has the amount of storage space for them that we do, though. And Marie said that one time she emailed Vance directly and he was on vacation. So he does go on vacation sometimes. We let him do that on occasion. But yes. Okay. No one has ever told me they have gotten too many bags. I have heard from some people who on occasion say they still need more, but I have never heard of anyone getting too many, but it is possible. There's one library that just periodically sends us some extras that they have, which if you have too many, you can send them back to us and we will hold on to them. Oh, yeah. Adrian says that they place their courier bags in color order in an archival box, which is easy to see what you have. That's good. We have cabinets and they're sorted by color in there as well.
Yeah. We have a couple of the Department of Libraries free and Matter for the Blind, maybe because it came from the Able Library. So we tried to send back the same, but maybe we received books from additionally for the Able rotating library, so we also have those too.
Yeah, and sometimes
but we would not use
have
it unless I guess that's mail. That's by mail. But
that's
it
by
looks
mail.
like a courier bag.
Sometimes people do send those back in the courier. And it's
that's how I got them.
It's only a problem if they don't put a courier label in it. Sometimes they put the like Able mailing label, which ends up working out okay for us anyway, because there's mystery contents, they send it to us. So I think that's how it's been getting through. But typically if you can return Able material to us through the courier, but it is free to send it through USPS as well. Noreen, I like your label box. Very well sorted. We have a card catalog in our mail room, and it's got mailing labels in this column and then courier labels here. And in case anyone wondered, we are up to 123 public libraries on the courier system, 7 schools, and 3 academics, though Bennington College is seasonal. Oh, and Riley likes seeing the different setups for labels and bags. So it would be nice to have a sneak peek on how other libraries do that. Oh, Marie keeps them in a binder using baseball card pages. Oh, I like that. Do you do that for mailing labels too, or just for courier labels? I don't know if mailing labels would fit. It's the pain when new libraries on board because you have them in alphabetical order, right? Just have some blanks scattered throughout. That works. But yeah. A good volunteer job to rearrange the labels.
We went from, I don't know if we can see. Oh, it's kind of dark and shadowy here. I can turn the, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to email it because it's too hard to see. But that we went from one side. Yeah, so we went from labels being just by themselves to organized like an archival. And so it looks more, I don't know if that.
I can kind of see it.
Kind of like a box with it. It's like with all the libraries they're added. And then in the back, we did put the mailing labels, but we took those out and separated them. I mean, we separated the courier labels from the mailing labels because we were adding courier libraries and We also receive labels for our library, so our collection is quite large. But it's very easy to find, and they don't get wrinkles. And they're alphabetical by library name. And then we also cross-reference if a library is a hub for other libraries. So if they share a stop, we'd have it in both locations. Archival training coming.
And Beth said that she bought a wooden recipe box and it seems to work. It does seem like it would work well. So I think if people do want to, we can do a sharing on the listserv of organization strategies. I don't know about anyone else, but I love seeing how things are organized. Like going on the Container Store website and just watching how people have all those like closets and kitchens organized, and then just sighing at my kitchen.
And labeled.
And labeled. Everything is labeled. Oh.
It would be helpful if we did that by listserv to have like one topic, not all these disparate topics, but like how do you organize your courier labels, and then have photos if people want to share or information they want to share. So it's all in one place. And then how do you organize your courier box? For example, we put ours alphabetical by library. So we know if there's duplicates, courier bags, then we can add things together. We make it easier hopefully for the courier to sort them. But yeah, like different topics, but in one thread.
I will say that our courier bin is not organized when it goes out. We just add things as we process them.
And when you add things, do you count them then, or do you count them at the end? And then the Department of Libraries has their own worksheet, but other libraries might have their worksheets.
We count them as they go in.
Yeah,
because
we count
Vance packages them up in the mail room, and he keeps the tally sheet there, and then he brings it to the courier bin, which is parked by the elevator.
Right, and so it's not forgotten.
Right. Unless someone else tries to send something in the courier, and then we have to talk to them.
It may be a difference also because you have multiple deliveries too. I mean, during the week, and so things are frequently going out, and my library only have once a week, so we can count it on. We do it 2 days before, so just in case something happens, there's always another day, business day, to count the items. But
yes. And Noreen just put a really good suggestion. She said that she puts her courier bags in the bin in order, I'm guessing, of library, so that if she needs to add to it throughout the week, they're easier to find. So if she gets another request from the same library. I like that strategy. Oh, and Riley has a question on multi-copy requests. You requested 5 copies of a book for a book club, received 5 from us, and then 4 singular copies from other libraries. Are you doing something wrong? No, I don't think so. I'm actually wondering if we processed the request wrong. Can you email me the request numbers and let me know? And I'm happy to look into that more. Because generally, if it's one of our discussion sets, we only send out the whole set. And our singular copies are not requestable. So that one was very weird. Just let me know the title, and I can look into it and see what went awry with that one. And Noreen sorts her bags in the bin alphabetical by library name, and so does St. J. Okay. And Tenzin has their bags on a shelf sorted by color. Do people like that the different sizes are different colors? I've never asked that before. They were all chosen before I started. Yes. Okay. Someone asked me about it once, and I said I never thought about it, but I like the different colors. Okay. Everybody likes that the different sizes are different colors. I'm assuming it's partly so that if you need a specific size, it's easier to just write the color than it is to remember what the measurements are. Oh, and a book club question. If you process a multi-copy request for a non-library book club, what name do you use on the request? Oh, for a patron name?
Yeah, for a patron name. So
okay.
What happened this week is I finally asked a book club member who's also one of my volunteers if they could come up with a name for their book club. That way it's not just one of their names, because then it's a privacy thing. Like, I know they all know they're reading that book, but I'm still trying to maintain some semblance of,
Right.
I'm not going to give person X the book with person Y's name on it.
Right. I think what I did for something like that was I put my own name on the Clover request and then checked out the copies to the people I knew in our ILS in Verso.
We do that here too, April.
that
with
too?
with the person who runs our book groups, we check it out to that staff member, and it's also beneficial because even though we do have the longer due date for the book club, it's helpful to have the due date on the day that the group is meeting, because everyone brings back their books, and it saves a lot of hassle for tracking down those books, especially if, so I think that that's also helpful.
And Marie,
but we also check out books to the individual patron for that same group. So some people prefer getting their own book at a different time or having it longer versus the book group.
Right. And Marie, you have SIP 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, one option is that you use like a library dummy account for it and just make up a name for the book group. And then do you check them out in your ILS as well? Because we do, and we use the Clover request number.
I do. Yeah, that's what I use. And we check them out to the individual in our ILS and use the Clover request number as the barcode.
Okay.
It's just more of like what gets printed on the book strap.
Right.
Which I just, I white out.
Yeah.
But I have to say that this one person was so excited. Like, her whole book club was a flurry of texts coming up with names for themselves. So
I like that. It's a fun activity for them.
And just to clarify, this is a non-library book club. This is one of our many local, our own book club. We come up with our own name, but this is like when I have 3 different people coming to me because they all want the same book at the same time.
I like that. I like the idea of having them come up with their own book club name too. Well, and Noreen,
and I suppose, April, that you can't leave that blank, that information, because when you set it, like when you do the request, I don't know if that's a required field, because I know that when we check out a book, so there might be a family that's using the account, and I know it's going to be going to a particular family member, so I will customize before I submit the request that the family member's name, so it comes up in the bookstrap. But I understand this is multiple, but I'm wondering if like that could be blank or could have a star or something, or I don't know, just like, and they can just, but handwriting isn't as nice as having it typed.
So another option is, so the required fields in a request are the patron last name and the patron contact, which is an email address. And I've done this before, but I don't have SIP 2. I've gone back after I submitted the request and opened it, and I can edit the information in there and just hit save. But I don't know if you can do that with a SIP 2 request. since it's connected to an account.
I will check that out
Okay.
next time I do that.
I think you can go back and edit the information. I just would not promise it because I'm not sure.
I don't know if you could do it after you submit it. I think that
Because it's trying to pull information directly from your ILS. I think that
right, you
it
can
pulls it
customize it,
in, and then
but-
I think you can edit after you submit because it's not going to reconnect to the ILS to confirm.
You can definitely change it when you initially set up the request. You can overwrite, but I don't know if you can go back in.
I don't think you can go back in.
Okay.
I'll check it out though.
Okay, because I know in OCLC I can do that because I've submitted multiple copies before, and then I go back and change the individual request because, again, it's easier to send a multi-copy request and have it generate, 8 requests, and then go back and change some of the info than trying to request 8 separate times. We will all test it and report back. Oh, and Tenzin just asked for a reminder to put in for book clubs, just put in the note field when you need it until, she said everyone is usually really good about it, but just a reminder. Okay. Any other topics? I think we're doing pretty well for a meeting that started with no agenda items. All right. Any other topics? Our next meeting is in February and it will be in the morning. I am going to send out information. I will schedule all of the 2023 dates and put the dates and times into when I send out the summary for this meeting, which that summary in the recording is probably not going to go out until the week of Thanksgiving because I am out for about half of next week. So, but I will get all of that out. And I think we're going to keep the switching between morning and afternoon. That seems to be working pretty well.
Can you add something to the training about matching the due dates?
Yes, that's a good one.
Between your ILS and Clover. That might tie to the participant record.
And some of the settings in your ILS. Maybe what I can do is have different people with different ILSs present at that to show how they've been able to make those match. Because I can't help with CoHop because I don't have CoHop, but I know that
and maybe different
Wendy
Vocal
was able to do that.
And
Vocal and Catamount.
It might be the same. I haven't had experience with Catamount, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was something I had to really work to get that connected. But it does, on the holiday, there will be they will not match.
Right.
If you have set it, so that's also like a settings thing. So if you have the holidays configured, but whether to count those days or not. So really understanding what checking that means. And also, when we move to the Clover bookstraps, it's very clear that that has the due date on it. That's the Clover date. That's the agreement between the two libraries. That's part of the Clover record. And then it kind of, we walked away from printing out the ILS receipt, even though we do check it out in our ILS for statistics and to keep track of materials and have a duplicate way, but some libraries are still sending out the ILS and those don't always match, or or there's lots of handwriting on labels, and so it's a little bit unclear when it says one thing in the database and it's different in vocal and it's different in written down, and yeah, having everything consistent brings a lot of clarity. When I first started at the Athenaeum, we would always go with the shortest due date, which doesn't seem fair to the, but it's ILS, it maybe is set differently than your Clover due date, and maybe we should have been giving the Clover at that time. I was too new. I didn't, but we were trying to follow what the library was sending to us by paperwork, and
Right.
yeah, so
yeah, I
having all that
usually go with the
consistent,
one that's on the paperwork, if there is paperwork.
but then that kind of discounts like why we're doing Clover, that's where you're loaning the materials through. So
Right. Okay, yes,
ultimately
we can
that should
do
match.
a session on that as well.
And then adding in renewals, because that's also another, because when you're checking out your ILS, you might not have your renewals the same amount that maybe Clover would give. So when you do a accept renewal, making sure that also matches, because that might not automatically line up either. And maybe like the ILS is more about record keeping and for the item and not really the due date. You were asking me earlier if am I getting an automatic message from the library, or am I getting a direct message from the library about an overdue? And so that's where the ILS is important, I guess, in some ways. But if people are going to discount that anyway, maybe taking the step to align them, like it's a lesser priority, although it is best practice isn't great to have everything align.
Right.
There are people writing things on the chat.
So Beth said that you can change the checkout date in Koha, and Riley said that sometimes the paperwork has an older due date in handwriting and doesn't match Koha or Clover. For those, sometimes
I think what's happening is that they're doing the due date, they're seeing it in the record at a particular date, but they don't mark it shipped, and so it doesn't change the status. And if you're marking it shipped the next day, it will advance the due date. Or like you're seeing, but it looks like it would stay fixed, but Clover doesn't have it stay fixed until you have officially submitted it. Or so if you're printing out the screen versus printing out a shipping label or a book strap, that information might change. So that's probably what's going on. Or they're realizing they haven't matched the due dates on the back end of things, like in the participant record. So it won't match their ILS. One might be longer or shorter. Yeah, and it seems like a lot of extra effort if people are writing the due dates. And if they have to do that every time, I mean, maybe if there's a mistake, oh, no big deal. You handwrite it. But if you're writing it every time, like that's not efficient. You probably could automate it more.
That sounds good. And Noreen asked, what is an ILS? And Marie, thank you for saying integrated library system, Koha, Library World, Follett. We'll throw in Verso because we have Verso. We no longer have Mandarin libraries. There are a lot more ILSs than I ever dreamed possible, and I have a folder for all of them. Okay, so yes, definitely a training on matching the due dates in the ILS and Clover, because I know we have that document where people could add the steps, but I think there's still some blanks in that.
I think that's an onerous task, in a way that's like extra to what people are doing. And technical writing of procedures is like you have to really think through, like maybe somebody's coming to this cold and all the technical terms and every library might have it a slightly different way, but showing on the screen maybe help, like a screen share.
Like an actual walkthrough. Yes.
Yeah, like here's where I did this, or this is how I configured it, or here's where I changed the due date for the renewal.
Yeah, okay. I have that on my training list. All right. Thank you. Okay, any other ILL topics, trainings? things people want to talk about. Marie is heading out. Thank you, Marie. Noreen said, let me know when I am doing something wrong. I don't think you're doing anything wrong, but I know that everyone is always very helpful on the listservs, and just the ILL group in Vermont has been wonderful. And Adrian said, there's a lot on my work plate. There is. Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Tammy. Okay. If there are no other topics, then we can end early. Oh, and Noreen's, there's so much to do, and she's learned a lot over the past year, and she loves chatting with other librarians when there's calls for clarification. I love when I check with people on Interlibrary Loan because you are all very helpful and just great sources of information for this. So I agree, Noreen. Everyone is great. Yes, everyone is very nice. Okay, I guess we will end an hour early. I will send out a summary email with notes and the recording and the 2023 dates, and I will plan for the August one to be in person, and I will make sure to have details for that available far ahead of time so we can all plan. So thank you, everybody.